Okay, we're in the final lap of the United States elections, and the pulse of the voters is all that matters now. We have our correspondent, Hiral Sachde, in New York City, who has been bringing to us the voice of the people of the United States. Listen in to what the voters have to say to her.
We are at Bryant Park in New York City, and as you can see, this place is extremely crowded with a lot of people. It's Halloween and people are out and about. We tried to speak to people on their perspective on both the presidential candidates and the key issues that are being discussed in this election. So come join me and hear what they have to say. So you tell me, who do you think is a better president?
They're both terrible, but I guess Trump had a better economy, and Kamala was never the president, so. But she's vice president, and the economy's bad. I don't know if they did anything good. Trump says stupid things to make people hate him, but the economy was better.
Trump, Donald Trump.
Why do you think so?
We are from El Salvador, and he has a better understanding of our country than Kamala Harris. Yes.
Well, I think I align more with some of the things that Donald Trump wants to push forward. And so, if I were to choose a side, I would have voted for Trump.
Kamala Harris,
Why do you say so?
because she's more into the people. She's more sympathetic to the ordinary working people, and she'll bring the people in this country together. That's what I believe. Where I think Trump, although I like some of his thing, he's very divisive. And that's the whole problem. He's a brilliant man, but his ego is too big, and he doesn't believe in the laws of this country, and that's a serious issue.
Because she's actually concerned about U.S. citizens and not herself.
I choose Harris because I think it's the right thing to do right now. I mean, I've been voting for 10 years, and I've gotten to vote several times in that time. And I think it's the right vote.
Well, for sure, she's going to be the better president, but I don't think she's going to win, unfortunately.
Why do you think so?
Well, because of all those different states. Of course, we're going to vote for her, and we did, but it's not about Sierra and NYC. So there are the other states, so they're going to go for the Trump. So.
What do you want to see resolved amongst the issues that are being discussed? Inflation, economy, immigration. What do you want to see resolved when the next president comes into the White House?
The economy is number one, but also the immigration issue is very important too. And crime in the streets is also a very big issue in this country. We have to have a fair immigration policy. We welcome immigrants, but we can't have a flood of people just coming in to the country undocumented. And that, I think, is an issue that Trump is starting to emphasize. And a lot of people are going to vote for him just on that issue.
I would say mostly inflation, taking care of seniors, and better health care, those major subjects that everybody's interested in.
Definitely income inequality. It'd be great to, the healthcare and.
They can improve so many things. For example, the healthy, the education, and the economy.
And as far as the women's reproductive rights go, as far as women's reproductive health goes, do you feel either way?
No.
The main thing is the economy, and then there's the war. Trump could take credit that, there was no Putin going into Ukraine during that time. There was no October 4th in Israel at that time. So, a lot of these things, sometimes the president has no control, but if the president is president, they take the blame. And it's like, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? So I guess those are the other things. If Trump loses, it's because of the stupid things that come out of either his mouth or his supporters' mouth. I was watching the Madison Square Garden, and there was a guy making a joke about Puerto Rico, and then another person making a joke about that, and Giuliani saying that I hate everybody that's Palestinian. So, you know, if he loses, it's that.
So when Biden made a remark that the garbages are people who support Donald Trump, and that remark has been now been covered widely, and the pro-Trump guys are using it as his way of demeaning the voters who will be voting for Trump. What do you have to say to that?
There was stupid things said on both sides for a very long time, and again, to be biased, yeah, I'm sure that's getting a lot of press. And then I'm sure a lot of things that Trump said has gotten a lot of press. He said the Chinese virus. He said these people want everything. He said so many things that were stupid. But yeah, if the deciding factor is going to be the people that are stuck in the middle, that vote because of one stupid thing or another, then whatever happens, happens.
The New Yorkers seem to be sure about what issue they want to see resolved once the next president comes in. So whether it be inflation or economy, most of them want to see a change there. However, what they are not sure of at this point is who can make a better president. Hiral Sachde, NewsX, New York City.
All right, well, as the countdown to election day hits just 2 days now, presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump took to the stage in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, each delivering their closing messages to rally support. With the stakes high in these crucial swing states, let's take a look at their contrasting campaign styles and key highlights from their rallies.
With just 2 days to go until the big day, presidential candidates Trump and Harris continue to press home their closing messages in the key Midwestern swing states of Michigan and Wisconsin.
We love being in Wisconsin.
It was a tale of two rallies. Harris and Trump held dueling rallies on Friday night in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On one side, Harris put on a star-studded show where she promised to build an economy for everyday people.
What's up, Milwaukee? And so, Wisconsin, today I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard?
At her rally, Harris took a jab at Donald Trump, telling her supporters that he is out for unchecked power. On the other side of the same city, Trump led with Republican politicians and supporters before taking the stage with an hour-plus speech.
I'm thrilled to be back in this beautiful state with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. That's what you are.
It was the usual Trump speech. He pledged to prevent World War III. He called his Democratic rival Harris a low IQ individual, and he said he would end inflation.
The economy stinks. What timing? What timing? 4 days before the election, they have among the worst numbers ever in history. Nobody's ever heard. They did 12,000 jobs. Normally you're 250, 300,000, 400,000. They did 12. Think of it, 12,000 jobs.
But throughout his Friday night speech, Trump continued to maintain that he won and would continue to win in this year's election.
I don't like to say, it's when I win. No, I sort of say, should I say when or if? I know, but it sounds a little braggadocio, right? All right, when I win, you are 4 days away from the best jobs, the biggest paychecks, and the brightest economic future the world has ever seen.
Polling trackers show Harris with a slim lead of about 1.2 points nationally, according to the data firm 538. Following an exhortation to their supporters to do everything they can in the final days of the race, Harris and Trump finished their rally in Milwaukee. Tomorrow, Harris will head to the swing state of North Carolina for a rally in Charlotte, where Trump will also be campaigning. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Right, joining us on the telecast is Raymond Vickery, a junior former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Thank you so much, Raymond. Appreciate you joining us on the program. The first question is, Trump and Biden have sparred over the unsavory comment on Puerto Ricans. Could this impact the way Puerto Ricans and other migrants vote?
Of course it can. Thanks very much for having me and asking this question. I think it's down to a very short period of time in which there are only few undecided, and those undecideds can be very much swayed by the kind of language, particularly that former President Trump is using.
Right. Well, Kamala Harris strategically held a rally at the 16th Jan insurrection site. Attacks on Trump, calling him fascist, racist, a Nazi, resonating with the average American. What do you make of these comments?
I think the average American is very much concerned in this election, and is concerned particularly about the issues of democracy and what happens with a woman's right to choose. I think the average American is very much concerned by pocketbook issues. Inflation has been a result of the stimulus given in order to be able to fight the recession that we experience from the pandemic. And this has placed stress on the system. The average American is also concerned about immigration and what happens in terms of our own society when you have a large influx of immigrants. Those concerns have been exacerbated by the kind of remarks that President Trump has been making about migrants being criminals, being murderers, being from insane asylums, and so forth. The true answer, of course, is whether or not there can be a rational system both to do justice to people who want to come to the United States legitimately, as well as control our own borders.
But do you think that the 6th January insurrection is still fresh in the minds of the voters, and will this impact the election this year as well?
Yes, I do think that it's in the minds of the voters, but I do think that the basic issues of the economy, of democracy, defending democracy, are the overriding concerns.
Right. Well, poll projections put Donald Trump ahead of Harris on economic policies. Could this tilt the polls in his favor, according to you?
You can read the polls in many, many different ways. But the fact is that this election is very, very close. And that the idea that Trump is ahead is not borne out by the facts. It's going to be very close. The battleground states are all basically deadlocked, and so it's going to be a very few uncommitted voters at this point who are going to decide the outcome.
Well, Donald Trump has alienated himself from women voters with his anti-abortion policy. How significant do you think is the women vote in the American polls?
Well, it's very significant. The overturning of Roe versus Wade, which gave a constitutional right to women to control their own bodies, has been very, very seriously damaged and is of very much concern. I think that former President Trump recognizes this and is trying to have it both ways. One, he claims complete credit for overturning the constitutional right, and at the same time, he tries to say that he is going to protect women. I think that without the women being very much in favor on the whole, in favor of Vice President Harris, this election wouldn't be as close as it is. So I think that that's a very pivotal concern, and one which will play out in favor of Vice President Harris.
And do you also think that Harris is being perceived as an inexperienced candidate who is still under the shadow of Joe Biden when it comes to foreign policy, economic policy, anti-abortion policy, and a lot more?
I think that there's no question that the Trump camp has tried to make Kamala Harris into the same as President Biden. Obviously, they're both Democrats, and so they have a common understanding of what the nation's interests are in terms of building the middle class, building the economy from the middle class out. They have a common understanding of the needs to defend democracy, to defend the rule of law internationally in regard to Ukraine. But there are very much differences. Kamala Harris brings the experience which she has had as a woman, particularly as a woman of color, of mixed ancestry, between immigrants from India and from Jamaica, which are different, and they are playing out and will play out in policy roles.
Right, and who is more likely to be, more aggressive on China, Trump or Kamala Harris?
In that regard, there's a common understanding about the challenge posed by China. There's a common understanding of the relationship between China and the needs of India and the needs of the world to have China play by the rules rather than simply try to aggrandize its claims, whether they be in border areas, whether they be in the South China Sea or Taiwan. So I think that the approach will be similar. I think the difference is whether or not you have the ability to deal with the subtleties of international policy rather than just taking a sledgehammer to the relationship.
All right. Well, is the government's foreign policy on Ukraine, Middle East, and China of any consequence when Americans decide who are they going to vote for?
Just as in any democracy, whether it be India or the United States, in times of like these, domestic considerations are more important. People are more concerned about their own financial situation. They're concerned about taxes. They're concerned about health care. They're concerned about the rights of freedom more than they are about foreign policy. That having been said, there's a very different approach which is being taken by President Trump. Basically, he would evidently pull the rug out from under Ukraine. He's great friends with Vladimir Putin, and he intends to stop the defense against the invasion of Ukraine. In regard to the Middle East, I think there's a difference there as well. Basically, Trump has said to Netanyahu, do what you have to do, and basically there would be no attempt to constrain at all. At least in regard to President Harris, I think you will get a continued pressure on Israel to pull back in terms of the great kind of suffering which has been inflicted upon non-combatant civilians.
All right, another important question. Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, who is more conducive for the Indo-US friendship and ties?
Well, the good news, of course, is that there is strong bipartisan support in the United States for the U.S.-India relationship. That happens whether or not it's Republican or a Democratic administration. In my view, Harris is much the better choice for U.S.-India relations because there is a willingness to work with India in terms of giving it what it needs to succeed as one of the great democracies in the world, and seeing that as in the interest of the United States, regardless of particular disputes that may be arising between the U.S. and India. The approach of the Trump administration is clearly much more a transactional approach, and that is a quid pro quo for whatever it is that President Trump would feel is in his interest.
And do you think Indian businesses will benefit if Trump were, to come to power?
I think that India is going to be in a good position with the United States, regardless of who wins this election. I do think that the relationship will be much better under the non-transactional and overall commitment to democracy, which President Harris would have in her administration, rather than what's in it for me approach of.
All right. Raymond, appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. Well, now joining us on the telecast is Cleo Pascal, a non-resident senior fellow from the Foundation of Defense of Democracies. Cleo Pascal, appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with us. First up, will Trump's appearance, according to you, in a sanitation worker's jacket, will it help his campaign despite his supporters' recent derogatory remarks about Puerto Rico?
I think that at this point, people are pretty much decided who they're going to vote for. In terms of the garbage language, the bigger one might be President Biden referring to supporters of Trump as garbage. That is going to make people who like Trump supporters, they'll give you a kind of specific example. Like say you've got a couple and the husband is voting for Trump and the wife was thinking of voting for Kamala Harris, sorry, the American pronunciation gets into your head and distorts it. But the wife won't like her husband being referred to as garbage. So it may not be that she won't vote for Trump, but it may be that she doesn't feel comfortable voting for the Harris Waltz ticket anymore. So I think that his voters they're totally fine with this sort of trolling. They know that doesn't represent the candidate. These sort of things happen, but President Biden coming out and calling half of the U.S. voting public garbage isn't going to go well with that it's a small group now of people who potentially aren't very strongly in favor of one candidate.
Well, after Joe Biden called Trump supporters in Puerto Rico garbage, do Puerto Rican voters, really play a pivotal role in this election, according to you?
They do. I mean, the Hispanic vote in total is quite substantial, but I just don't see it from the polls we've been seeing. It doesn't really seem to be swaying. Currently, the Hispanic vote is about 40% for Trump, a bit over 50% for Harris. That's quite high for a Republican candidate. But the reasons that they're voting, these are sophisticated, intelligent people. They know what happens in politics, but what they care about, what they're voting about, are issues like inflation and jobs and immigration and some flash in the news cycle about this sort of thing, which wasn't said directly by the candidate, isn't going to affect their vote for Trump. As mentioned, it may affect those who are soft Harris voters because of what President Biden said. But things like showing up in the garbage truck, that sort of trolling is stirs up Trump's base substantially, and it gives him much more narrative control.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.